Okay, joining me now, Ohio Republican Senator J.D. Vance. All right, Senator, you heard your colleague there saying that President Trump is about division and he's about revenge. Your response?
Well, if you actually watch the performance of President Trump in the debate, that's not what it's about at all, Shannon. It's about getting the country back on track, bringing prosperity and peace back to the world stage, and actually having a leader who can sit in a room with other world leaders and do the job as president. If you look, Shannon, just at how the two candidates performed, obviously Joe Biden had a disastrous performance, which is why they're talking about replacing him. But you also have to look at what Donald Trump was able to do. He showed commands of the facts. He was funny. He was engaging. He was pushing back a little bit, but he was doing it with a good-natured demeanor. That's what you need to be able to serve as president of the United States. And the contrast with Joe Biden, who seemed to be unable to complete a sentence, I'm not worried about their debate performances, Shannon. I'm worried about what did these guys look like in the world stage? What do they look like in private meetings with world leaders? And clearly Donald Trump showed that he could represent our country well in that forum, and Joe Biden showed that he couldn't. It was a remarkable contrast, but this is not about division. This is about prosperity. How do we get wages rising? How do we shut down the border? And how do we stop a world where everything seems to be on fire under Joe Biden's leadership, the very Joe Biden that we all saw at the debate stage just a couple nights ago?
His team says he's absolutely showing up for the September debate, but they're starting to raise questions about whether President Trump will. Is there any conversation that he wouldn't show for that second debate?
Look, I think Donald Trump is going to do what's in the best interest of his campaign because him winning is what's in the best interest of the country. So I'll let Donald Trump make the decision about whether he's going to do the September debate. Clearly, the debates have been very good for him, and I think a next debate would be very good for President Trump because the contrast is remarkable, Shannon. We have to ask ourselves not how these guys perform in a debate, but how could Joe Biden possibly do the job of parrying against world leaders? And how could anybody think, having seen Donald Trump on the debate stage, that he couldn't do the job? Obviously he could, and that's ultimately what the debates really showed, is that we have two candidates, one who can't do the job, one who has failed to do the job, and that's Joe Biden, and Donald Trump, who both could do the job but has already done it successfully. We have a remarkable choice here for the American people, and I'm so glad that I'm on the side of the guy who actually has done the job well and showed at the debate he could do it again.
Well, I know that you are among those who say you want President Biden to stay on the ticket, that there are people who have voted for him, and that's what they owe the Democrats who have supported him, all of those delegates who are heading that way. We know there's a growing conversation about pushing him out. We know today at Camp David he's having a conversation with his family. Now, we're told that was a pre-planned conversation and a meeting with the children and grandchildren, and of course, the First Lady. But it raises speculation about that conversation. Nikki Haley is out there warning that the Trump campaign needs to be ready for a change. She says this in the Wall Street Journal. They are going to be smart about it. They're going to bring in somebody younger. They're going to bring somebody vibrant. They're going to bring somebody tested. We know that voters have told us in polls across the board they don't like this rematch. And what happens to the preparation, the strategy for President Trump's team if you join the ticket or if you don't? If they get somebody who has better favorables, younger, more likable, and you've got a new opponent to get ready for.
You know, Shannon, I actually don't care if Joe Biden is the Democratic nominee because Donald Trump is the Republican nominee, and the contrast between Republican policies under Donald Trump and whoever the Democrats ultimately end up with is very powerful. What I do think, Shannon, is it would be an incredible insult to Democratic voters to have this primary process that was effectively rigged in favor of Joe Biden, and then at the last minute, when Joe Biden has a disastrous debate performance, try to switch him out. But who are they going to switch him out with, and how can they possibly offer a good contrast to the guy who brought prosperity to his own country and peace on the world stage? The problem is not that Joe Biden had a bad debate. The problem, Shannon, is that Democratic leadership over the last 3.5 years has led to a war in Europe, wars in Africa, a war in the Middle East, and a potential war in East Asia, not to mention sky-high inflation that every single one of the possible Democrats who could run for president, they all supported the policies that led to that inflation. So I'm really not worried about their party. I'm focused on our own party, and I think that we have the best candidate to make the case that if you elect us, if you give Donald Trump a chance at the presidency, he is going to bring back that peace and prosperity. That's all we want, is an America that's back on track. Donald Trump delivered it once. He's going to deliver it again.
So let's talk foreign policy, because you talk about that and how important it is to any commander-in-chief. President Biden said at the debate that President Trump would withdraw from NATO. He says that he would also tell Vladimir Putin, he says he has told him, just do what you want. That's the quote when it comes to attacking NATO members, despite Article 5 obligations. What is President Trump's position on staying in NATO, in coming to the defense as agreed under Article 5, should someone be attacked?
Well, Shannon, first of all, the Democrats' argument here is so inconsistent with reality. Russia took territory under the Bush administration. It took territory under the Obama administration. It took territory under the Biden administration. It took zero territory under the Trump administration because Vladimir Putin actually respected Donald Trump, and he hasn't respected any of these other clowns. That's the most important thing when it comes to Putin's aggression in Europe, and the Democrats' arguments are absurd. Now, on the question of NATO, what Trump has said very clearly is that Europe has to step up. America cannot be the policeman of the world. We want NATO to be a strong alliance. We don't want NATO countries to be welfare clients of the United States. If Vladimir Putin is a significant threat to Europe, then the Germans have to step up. The French have to step up. They need to do more for their own security. And I think that argument actually lands not just with a lot of Americans, but with a lot of Europeans. They are not our clients. We want NATO to be a strong alliance, but for that to be the case, the Europeans have got to step up.
But is there any scenario in which there's an attack on a NATO ally and we don't show up?
Look, Shannon, we're going to honor our treaty obligations, and I think that Donald Trump has been very clear about that. But what Donald Trump has also been very clear about is that the Europeans have to take a bigger role in their own security. And by the way, Shannon, that's already had an effect. The Europeans have already stepped up substantially compared to the Trump administration, because Donald Trump effectively applied pressure to them. And I think if you see another Trump administration, which obviously I'm working hard to make sure happens, we're just going to see more and more Europeans taking a bigger role because they respect Trump's leadership. And they also recognize Trump is saying very clearly, you guys have got to carry your fair share here. It's fair to America. It's better for Europe. It's better for the whole world for the Europeans to step up. That is the Republican position. And it is different from the Democrats' position, where they've effectively told the Europeans, American taxpayers will float your security indefinitely. America has other things to focus on, China, our own domestic problems. Europe's got to step up, and that's a very important distinction between Donald Trump and Joe Biden.
All right, we got to go, but Senator, any announcements you'd like to make before you go?
Not for me, Shannon. As you know, I've said I want to support the president however I can. He's winning this race. The debate was just the latest big moment for the campaign to make Donald Trump the president. I'm going to keep on working however I can and in whatever way I can and as hard as I can to make sure it happens, because that's what's in the best interest of our country.
All right, we'll see you out there on the trail. Senator, thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.